Welcome to the Show Up Dad podcast, where we explore the journey of fatherhood and provide valuable insights to help dads show up for their families. I'm your host, David Mendonca, and today we have a very special guest. But before we delve into our conversation, I want to express gratitude to our sponsors for their support. This episode of the Show Up Dad is sponsored by Tallman Equipment, a trusted provider of high-quality tools and equipment for the powerline industry. Visit tallmanequipment.com to explore their wide range of products and how they can assist you. I also want to give a special shout out to the Show Up Dad Foundation, an organization dedicated to supporting fathers on their journey to show up for their families. Through our workshops, resources, and supportive community, we have been able to empower dads to be present and make a positive impact in their children's lives. Learn more about our mission and how you can get involved at the showupdadfoundation.org. Today we have a very special guest joining us, guys. His name's Greg Burt. He is a communications, media, and government policy specialist with over 23 years of experience in public relations, marketing, journalism, public affairs, grassroots activism, and legislative advocacy. Greg is now the Vice President of California Family Council, acting as a watchdog over the state legislator on the issues related to religious liberty, parental rights, the value of human life from conception to natural death, and the biblical definition of family and gender. He has a BA in communications from the University of the Nations and 2 MA degrees, one in public policy and the other in journalism from Regent University. Greg lives in Elk Grove with his wife of 26 years and has 3 children ages 16, 21, and 23. He is a member of Life Point Christian Church in Elk Grove. Welcome to our show, Greg.
Hey, David, thanks for having me. Appreciate being here. Kind of excited talking about something dear to my heart. And, the California Family Council is the father's role in society and especially in their families. So glad to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I want to start off, Greg, just by asking you, just share your story. How did you get involved in all this?
Oh, that's kind of a long story. I grew up in Southern California. My dad was a math teacher, grew up in a Christian home, and my parents did something kind of crazy when I was young. They decided to become missionaries for a year. My dad took a year off, and we moved to Hawaii to a mission training organization called Youth with a Mission, or YWAM, and we ended up going to Asia for about 2 months as missionaries, and kind of opened my eyes to the world. Went to like 5 different countries, including China, smuggled Bibles into China as a 14-year-old, and came back to California after that, and was, transformed. I couldn't handle just doing the boring old life, Southern California, enjoying the beach and, living a life of comfort. So that kind of set me off on a journey of working with YWAM as a teenager. Lived in Hong Kong for a while. Got involved in journalism. Ended up going to graduate school in Virginia Beach. Wanted to become a journalist. And ended up moving to Colorado after graduation. Got married. Was a newspaper reporter for a while. And then moved over to working for a member of Congress, running offices, and after 3 kids, and then moving back to California, got working for a state legislator in Southern California, and then eventually moved up to the Capitol to be a press secretary for a member of the Assembly. But, I got kind of frustrated working for politicians. They never quite said or stood up the way I wanted to be standing up for Christian values. And so I've been following these organizations called Family Policy Councils. They were started by an organization called Focus on the Family back in the 1980s. And they were very much involved with, the influence of government on the family is huge. And there are folks in government eager to transform our society, and part of that is transforming the family, right? Away from the biblical model of father, mother, child. And I definitely see that up here in California. And so There are 40 family policy councils in 40 different states. We're all at the state capitals defending biblical values, and that includes defending the biblical view of family. And you would think, well, is that really under assault? And oh, yes, it is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think once we've been seeing it for years.
Yeah.
Started out with same-sex marriage, right? Where that was an assault on the biblical definition of marriage. Actually, the definition of marriage altogether. No one ever conceived that marriage was anything else but a man-woman relationship. The foundation of our society, the first government. It's where children are raised. Any strong country, the very basis of that country has always been strong family. If you don't have a strong family, you're going to have chaos. And so, but, as the Supreme Court, it's kind of blown apart the whole idea that marriage is between a man and a woman. And here in California, we kind of led that effort with our own governor in San Francisco, all on his own, deciding he's going to start marrying same-sex couples. You remember that?
Yep.
And then that ended up in a lawsuit. At Prop 8 here in California, we had, even in California in 2008, the majority of the population decided that, you know what, we need to establish what a definition of marriage actually is. Nobody used to contest it, but now people seem to be confused. So, okay, it's between a man and a woman. We're not going to encourage families to start, and that's the basis of marriages anyway, right, to raise children. And so marriage was not anything but a man and a woman. So that was passed by a majority in 2008. Even that was the year President Obama was also elected. So it was a pretty bipartisan effort. But what a difference, a law, once the Supreme Court overturned that, and now we're in a situation where year after year, more and more people are being accepting of same-sex marriage. And now, here in California, I'm not sure if you know this, but there's a constitutional amendment that is going to be voted on this November. It's called ACA 5. I think it's now Prop 3, which is going to take the language that was put into our state constitution defining marriage between a man and a woman. That's going to be removed. Well, the voters are going to vote on it. And the proposition is we're going to remove that definition of a marriage between a man and a woman, and we're going to replace it with an open-ended, no definition marriage is a fundamental right with no definitions.
Oh my gosh!
So we already have in Berkeley and Oakland, they've already passed laws giving legal recognition to polyamorous families. Do you know what a polyamorous family is?
No, please explain.
Okay, it's different than polygamy. Polygamy is like one man who has multiple wives, or a woman who has multiple husbands. Well, polyamory is an unlimited number of males and females living together with having sex with each other. It's kind of like I don't know. No, it's non-monogamy. But people are living together in groups and all having sex and children with each other. It's like it's not it's taking non-marriage and redefining it to mean, hey, let's just all get together in a group and have sex, and it's recognizing like I don't know, it's like an orgy.
Yes,
and we'll recognize it as something legitimate, a legitimate way to raise families.
I got a question for you. This isn't something new though, Greg, right? I think I've heard about this. This is something that was practiced back in I don't know what time frame. I don't, you know what I mean? But it was a long time ago that they're practicing these orgies per se, right? Throughout history.
It's never been state recognized.
Yeah.
Right. So now the state is actually putting here's one thing I've learned by being at the Capitol, that, how do people come up with their value? The laws that we pass teach the culture what is right and wrong. And right, people have value systems, and where do they get them? If they abandon God and they don't get their value systems from the Bible or some other sacred text, then where do they get them? Right? The government becomes God, and people look to government to direct and guide them. Like the government has the right to encourage behavior, to decide what is good and bad, right? And shame those who don't go along, right? Government leaders act as the moral arbiters. And so people have been changing their minds about all kinds of sexual activity. And it seems like the only thing now is the only moral rule that capital has, the majority party has, is, consent. As long as you got consenting adults, well, not at this point, it's still adults. Yeah. But that's the only hindrance to sexual behavior, and everything else is encouraged. So I mean, we can go on and on about that. But so this is part of society blowing apart, right? And kids. Statistics have always shown that a child who is raised by his biological mother and father is the child that does the best, right? Yeah. And the child that does the worst, that's on all, how well they do in education, the lowest rates of abuse, a thriving child. You want a culture where the majority of people are raising their own children, right? When you adopt, that's better than having orphans, right? I could do better, but that's it's a great substitute. But the kids do the worst when a child is living with his mother and a boyfriend, or a non-related male in the house. Those kids have the highest rates of abuse. Yes. And when they're not married, when the mother's not married to the guy, right? Those kids do the absolute worst. And so now recognizing polyamory is you're now putting children in danger. You're encouraging a public policy where kids do the absolute worst, right?
Yes. It almost seems to me like that's the whole agenda. And that's my next question is, what's the motivation behind these lawmakers who are trying to undermine the parents? I mean, it definitely doesn't seem that, protection of the children is at their forefront at all, Yeah,
I mean, it's a total different worldview, right? I mean, the mother, father, child is an outdated, oppressive institution where women are under the thumb of their husband, and they, women don't need men, right, to be happy. And then it's just looking to, and who are you? And any kind of structure is being rebelled against. Yeah. Right. Who are you to tell me what a family is? Who are you to tell me that I shouldn't follow my own desires? Right? I mean, I think it comes down to the whole worldview of, who am I? And where do I get my identity? Like, the Bible describes human beings as valuable, made in God's image, extremely full of value and purpose, but flawed. Right? And naturally inclined to destructive behavior. Yeah. Right? And so we expect, even in ourselves and other people, that their natural inclinations, if they follow their natural inclination, that it will not go well for them. Yeah. Right? And so civilization is all about controlling your natural impulses. Right? I mean, marriage is good for men because their natural impulses would be to have sex with as many people as they could. Yeah. Right? It is not commitment, and that's not those things have to be built into a man, right?
Yeah.
You give him responsibility. And so the same thing with all of us. We all have these natural inclinations that if we followed them, that's why children need guidance.
Yes.
Right? A kid doesn't grow up. Anybody's have kids knows kids aren't naturally selfless little angels.
No.
Right? They
they need training.
Trained to not follow their natural impulses. Right? No,
Yes.
Don't hit your sister. I don't care what she did. Right? I don't care what you feel like. You are not to hurt your sister. Right? You come to me. I will deal with what she did wrong. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You're constantly building in your kids self-control.
Yes.
Right? And consequences for behavior. Why? Because their natural inclinations, they would destroy each other.
Yeah.
Right? You go to an elementary school play yard and you take away all the adults. What do you think is going to happen?
Total chaos.
Total chaos. The strong kids will oppress the weak kids. They'll be, bullying, and it would be a total mess. Kids need to be taught what is good behavior and what is bad behavior, right? But but that's a Christian worldview. The worldview we are now coming from the capital is your natural inclination tell you who the real you is, right?
Yeah.
This is what the LGBTQ philosophy is. That your internal desires tell you who you are. Mm-hmm. So if you have same-sex attraction, if you don't feel comfortable in your own body, that's because the real you is your desire.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you are not being authentic if you resist your sexual impulses.
Yeah.
Right? That is so if that's your philosophy, if you don't believe there is a God, you don't believe there's such a thing as a selfish nature that needs to be repented of and overcome, and we need a savior to not only convict us of our sin, but to forgive us, right? You don't know what to do with these appetites. Well, the only way to get rid of your guilt is to get rid of the rules that make you feel guilty.
Yeah, right.
That's why Christians are now the bad people,
mm-hmm.
right? Because we think there is sexual behavior that's good and bad, right?
Yeah,
and bad for us. And when we say we don't think homosexuality is good for you, this is not how God created you,
mm-hmm.
right? This is not what the sexual desires were for, right? There's good sexual desires and there's disordered sexual desires, right?
Yeah.
And that drives them nuts. They think to tell a kid that is to cause them to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Right. To tell a kid who thinks he is trapped in the wrong body. And that's what they're starting to tell kids now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Starting in elementary school, this is being pushed out by our education system, is that gender is no longer male and female determined by biology. It is now an unlimited spectrum of gender. Every kid has got to pick his gender based on his feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
God, it's totally contrary to the word of God. Based on feelings. We're consistently told over and over again that don't base anything on our feelings, that they're fickle. Right?
Feelings are so fickle.
Oh my gosh. It's
the child especially. The part of growing up is to understand, don't trust your feelings when you're feeling crappy about yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're feeling worthless, or your feelings are so determined by your surroundings.
Yes.
Right? What kind of family you have, what kind of friends you have, what your school is telling you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can be so manipulated if you are feelings-based. And that's why, kids' mental health issues are just going through the roof.
Yes.
But no wonder when you tell kids to live based on their feelings, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, even think about it now. So we understand that the morals and values are supposed to come from the Word of God. Okay. Well, the Word of God is being taken out completely, right? There is a general attack on the family. Howard Zimmerman wrote this great book. I did this speech on it on the National Day of Prayer. It was the fall of the atomistic age, which he basically says that every single civilization has fallen, right? And it was from one thing. It was the fall of the traditional family. Whether you believed in Christian values or not, every civilization from Babylon on all fell from the same thing, which is that traditional family falling apart. And that's why I call it the atomistic age. Now, he also goes on to say that who are we as society today in America, as prideful as we are, thinking that that's not going to happen to us, but it's happening to us right now. And
Right.
it didn't start overnight. I mean, this has been a steady decay over moral decay, over and again. You know what I mean? A lot of the people I deal with now, their whole main objective is, I'm going to pull my kids out of public schools. I'm going to put them in Christian school, and that's all I need to do. And they think that that's kind of that what they're doing there is it's taking away their responsibilities to raise and train those children up, right? Just because they put them in Christian school. And that's a whole wrong set of thinking. As parents, as a father, that is our job. We have to train these children up in the admonition of the Lord commanded to us.
Absolutely.
And that's where discipleship comes in. A lot of us don't know these things. But God is a God of justice and righteousness. And just because you don't know doesn't mean you're not accountable.
Right.
I
mean, I grew up in public school. My dad was a public school teacher.
Yeah.
We went to church and youth group. But after high school, I really felt like I wanted to be discipled.
Mm-hmm.
And so the university I went to was called Youth with a Mission, and it started out. It was a missionary organization whose goal was to disciple the nations, and they put you through an actual discipleship training school, right?
Yeah.
So it was lots of personal, one-on-one group discipleship with leaders, right? And it was so I really did appreciate that. And then with my own kids, when I was in graduate school, I ended up writing a story about this homeschooling family. Just homeschooling. I'd never really seen homeschoolers before. I only heard about them. And one of the things I was impressed with some of the families that I visited, this one particular family would get up early, and the father would sit all the kids down, and they would go through some scripture reading as part of their homeschooling, right? Yeah. And I was going, wow. It was so intentional, but because they were homeschooling, they felt like, oh, it's all on me. So there was more incentive for them to feel the responsibility because the education and what their kids were learning was all on them. So when I got married and we started raising our kids, we decided to homeschool. And one of the things I was attracted by is because it was going to force me to disciple my kid. Yes. Right. It was going to be, if I send them off to school, of course you can disciple them as well. But, they get home, they get homework, they're in activities, they get up. I was hoping they were getting discipled by the schools. But, a teacher with 30 kids, it's going to be harder. And so we ended up homeschooling our 3 kids. My son is 16. We're still homeschooling him. The girls went to public high school, but we homeschooled them through 8th grade. And I'm so glad I did that because of and we went through all kinds of books together. My wife did a lot of the academic stuff, and I felt my responsibility was to do the Bible teaching and reading, and we would go through various books. And so it really helped me to get off the butt because I knew the responsibility was on me. Yes. There was nobody else who was going to do it. And so anyway, that's one. But a lot of parents are doing that. I know not everybody can do homeschooling. It's a ton of work, and you got to have an income that provides enough for your family that you're not going to starve. But we just live with old cars and go on big vacations, and we made it. And sometimes I had to have like 2 or 3 jobs.
Yeah.
just to make it through. But we made it. I'm glad I did.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing though, like nowadays the parents are having to be taken out of the home, right? Both of them in order to work, like you said, 2, 3 jobs. Um, I'm very fortunate that my wife has been a homemaker. I work in a career where I've been able to be able to do that, right?
Right.
But it takes me out of the home. It takes me away a lot of times, right? And
Right.
there's a tremendous amount of men out there that are having to do so to provide a better life for their families. And when we do that, we get comfortable being away from the home. And then now when we do get home, we don't even know how to act.
Right.
Right. And that's the breakdown there, because we're trying to provide for our families, trying to create this better life for them. But at the same time, we're not spending enough time with them to even have influence over our children. And right now, as a father, we need to be the louder voice for our kids, because if
Right.
not, the world is going to be louder. And the world right now is
Absolutely.
dictating what our children are going to do.
No, absolutely. You really have to balance all of that, and that means you're gonna have a lower standard of living, right? I mean,
Yeah.
which doesn't kill anybody. I mean, really, when your kids are grown up, are they gonna remember you not being there, or they're gonna or is the big vacation every year gonna be what they remember, right?
Yeah.
Or the newer cars, or the bigger houses. And so ultimately your kids want you there, especially when they get older. I noticed my girls and my son, you really got to be there for them in their older years. One of the things I do with my son is another, just an intentional thing. I got involved in a group called Trail Life, which is like a Christian version of the Boy Scouts. And I'm not really, I mean, I'll camp, but I don't have camping stuff. And they did everything. So we went to meetings, once a week with these other guys, and they learned, all kinds of outdoor stuff. And we did backpacking trips into the mountains and stuff that I would never do on my own.
Yeah.
And the whole point was to get fathers close to their sons, right? And to be there as an example of what a man is supposed to be, and then have other men around you interested in doing the same thing for their sons.
Yes.
Right, and showing that their commitment to the Lord, that being spiritual, that loving God was a male thing. It wasn't a mother thing, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't a feminine thing. That it's godly men depend on God, right?
Absolutely.
And our sons need to see that, not just hear it at church. A lot of times schools and churches, a lot of Sunday school teachers and the teachers are female, right? And so all they learn about God is from women
perspective. Yeah.
Then they start to think, well, if I really want to be a man, well, that's kind of going to church is kind of feminine,
Yeah.
That's what women do, right?
Yeah.
They need to see men dependent on God and joining with other men, encouraging each other to follow the Lord no matter what.
That's where the whole piece comes in. Iron sharpens iron. And
Absolutely.
I see that.
You can't do it by yourself.
Exactly. I see that thrown around so much right nowadays. And it's like, man, you're missing the whole concept of that, It's kind of funny the way people will take a word, and just blow it out of its proportion or anything like that, but that's the whole concept of iron sharpen iron, getting around with like-minded men, studying the word of God, learning what it is to be a disciple and helping each other outgrow. We need it more than ever now, try it, right? I wanted to switch gears, Greg, because you have so much knowledge, brother, on what's going on here. And like I told you earlier before, I believe that California sets the tone for the rest of the nation. And right now we are being under attack here in this great state. I believe this is a great holding ground. Okay. Now they passed this bill, AB 1955.
Right.
And I want to kind of just pick your brain about it. Like, what are the specific rights of parents that it's taking away and stuff like that? If you can go into that, brother, and kind of share with our audience if they don't already know what's going on.
Yeah, well, this bill is really reacting to a fight that we started.
Okay.
About a year, earlier this year. And here's what I'm finding.
Okay.
I'm finding women, more than men, are standing up against the government's attack on female, on the family.
Yes.
Especially kids. And so there's a one particular woman who has been coming to the Capitol for the last couple of years. She's an attorney from San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And her name is Erin Friday. She's not a Christian. Actually grew up as a Democrat. And pretty liberal. But she had her daughter in school, and her daughter went through sex ed. And all of a sudden, she realized that all of her friends, they learned about something that she didn't learn in sex ed, and that was that you can pick your gender, and you could be any number of genders. Just what are your feelings telling you, right? And so, who wants to be boring female? And she realized her daughter, and who was fine being a girl her whole entire life, but all of her friends decided that they weren't females anymore, and they were something else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they go not just thinking they're male, but they're thinking they're polyamorous, or they're bisexual, or they're two-spirit, or you would not believe all the names they've come up with. Some
it's ridiculous.
obscure gender. And she go, okay, maybe this is the phase. But then her daughter, she got to high school, and it was during COVID, so she never actually went to high school. She was doing it from her home.
Mm-hmm.
And about a year later, her mom realized the school started using, unbeknownst to her, was referring to her as a boy, changed her name and pronoun, and had not told her about it. And she called up the school and said, "What is this? You've changed my daughter's name and is referring to her as a boy? You didn't think you should tell me this?"
Wow.
Right? And she was upset.
Oh, yeah, rightfully.
I mean, right? You never even met my daughter, and here you are changing her name. Right? And so the school, because she was not being affirming to her daughter's new identity, called CPS on her. And a sheriff and a member of the social services showed up at her front door.
My gosh.
And she was like, "You're saying I'm a danger to my own child?" Like, they told her they were trying to create a safe space for her at school. And so she's like, "So my house is not safe? You don't know anything about me."
Wow.
Right? You've never even met my daughter. Right? And so her mind was blown, and she started researching into this and realized that there was a whole generation of young girls who were all of a sudden deciding that they were transgender, trapped in their own body. It's called rapid onset gender dysphoria. It's happening there's a pretty famous book that was written. I'm trying to find I wrote an article about it. The transgender craze. It's by Abigail Schreier. I'm trying to find the article I wrote about it. Here it is. Irreversible Damage. The Transgender Craze Seducing Our Daughters by Abigail Schreier came out a couple years ago, talking about the explosion of girls hitting puberty and deciding that they think they're trapped in their own body. And once they determine that, doctors are prescribing them cross-sex hormones, giving them puberty blockers, which block their puberty from happening, right?
Yeah.
And then giving them top surgery, double mastectomies.
Oh my gosh.
This is happening everywhere, and the school districts are involved because the Department of Ed here in California has told school districts that they have an obligation to protect the privacy of kids from their own parent. And then if the kid decides that he is a different gender after they've been teaching them they can pick their gender, if they decide to pick a gender, the school is obligated to change the child pronoun and name, let the school, everybody who's the child is referred to as this new name and pronoun, but the parent can only know about it if the child allows it. But if the child thinks the parent is going to have a question it or not be all on board with the new identity, then they're told, that you could commit suicide if your parents don't affirm you. So what is happening is all these kids are starting to transition. Parents are being kept in the dark. And if the parents do find out, all the medical professionals are telling these parents that the way to treat this is puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and cut off your kid's healthy body parts. And if they're told they don't do that, they're going to commit suicide. So parents are being manipulated by the system. And so we decided one of the ideas to push back against this by Erin Friday. She had all these ideas, which I kind of tried to temper her because no one has been pushing back on this since I've been in the legislature. I've been there for 10 years. When I came up here in 2014, the Republicans will vote against bills related to LGBT. They have never introduced anything to push back on. We have this one idea. Hey, why don't we just pass a bill to require schools to notify parents? Just notify them. Don't ban them from changing a kid's name, but just notify them if a kid is asked to change their name and pronoun. Meaning, everybody needs to know about it except if every child wants everybody to know that they got a new name and pronoun, the parents get notified.
Wow.
So we introduced that. We found one legislator, a brand new legislator, maybe you know his name, Lassaley, from your area. He is the only legislator of all the legislators. I couldn't find anybody else who wanted to take it on because the vitriol that was going to happen was going to be intense.
Yeah.
But somebody's got to push back. And so, yes, I think this is a great idea. Parental right we should be pushing back against this. And so he introduced the bill. The Education Committee would not even hold a hearing. Al Mortasucci out of Long Beach, he was the chair of the Education Committee. He goes, I cannot even let this bill be heard by committee because it's so hateful, and I don't want to give haters an opportunity to speak at the microphone. It would give a platform for hatred. Hatred for notifying parents. Wow. That's how crazy the legislature is. So that failed. So hey, why don't we put together? Bill says, let's put together a parental right coalition, pull together all these different groups, and we'll put together a model policy that will have school districts introduce. And so that's what we did. The California Parent Rights, I think it's Parental Rights for California or California Parental Rights Coalition. We've got a website, we've got some attorneys, and we put together a model policy to pass in school districts. And so first school district introduced was Chino Valley Unified, down in your area.
Yeah.
Sonia Shaw was recently gotten elected, the conservative over that board, and she introduced it. And we had Tony Thurman, who is the state superintendent, came down to oppose the bill. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you saw all of that. But
no, I didn't see that. No.
Oh, so he comes down. They graciously let him speak first, and everybody gets a minute. Right? But after a minute, he couldn't sit down. And so she had to remove. So the police come up and remove him. It was quite the scene. Now we're going national news.
Yeah.
Right? And it passes, the Attorney General files a lawsuit, but we ended up getting 10 different school districts passed a parent notification policy. There was nothing in the law preventing it, but they had claimed that it was violating the state constitution because kids have privacy rights. But no one has ever interpreted our privacy rights as keeping children's lives secret from their parent, especially when they're in elementary school.
Exactly.
Right? They don't have privacy rights from their parent.
No.
Right? So there were several lawsuits filed. We ended up, the court started to decide in our favor. Especially down in Escondido, there were 2 Christian teachers who filed a federal lawsuit against their school district because they were being told, just like the Department of Ed said, to keep secret from parents the gender identity of their kid.
Yep.
And they said, I can't do that in good conscience because what I'm forced to do is to lie to the parent, because to keep that a secret, when I see the parent, I have to use the kid's original name and pronoun, and then in class I'm using their new name and pronoun. So you go to a parent conference, and they're supposed to keep all that straight, and they got 7, 8, 10 kids who all have different names and pronouns. They said, I'm not doing that. I'm not lying to teach. I'm not lying to parent. And for the federal judge in their case last September decided initially in their favor, saying that parental right is an established right in the Constitution. It is sacred. Parents have the ultimate right to guide the upbringing and care of their own children, and that is not to be violated in the state. And so a state is not, it's illegal for a state to keep secrets from parents. So that happens.
Good.
And so, also, I know this is long. I'm sorry it's long.
No, this is amazing.
Up to why AB 1955 was introduced. So another thing that happened in that federal case is the school says, hey, why are you suing us? We're simply doing what the state says is the law. If you're going to sue somebody, sue the attorney general, right?
Yeah.
The governor. So they changed the lawsuit, and then they added governor and attorney general onto the lawsuit. So it wasn't just suing the school district; they're going to sue the attorney general. So then the attorney general and Newsom send their attorneys to federal court, and they said, "Well, you can't sue us because this is just the school doing it. We were just offering guidance."
Oh my. That's what happens when you get government involved, right?
Right. We were just giving out guidance. We weren't really going to enforce these secrecy policies, right?
Yeah.
It was just guidance. So so now the school district realized they've been lying to us all the time. They've been threatening us with lawsuits when there's no law preventing us from doing that. So at that point, and because they started losing some in state court, there's a case in Temecula where the judge said there's something wrong with this. This is not discriminating against anybody. This is violating anybody's privacy. And then there was another case in Chino. That case, they struck down part of the policy that said you had to tell parents if kids are using a different sports team or a bathroom. But if the kid is simply asking to change their name and pronoun, any official record change, parents should be notified for that. So that was going to undermine their whole policy. So with all this happening, then in June, or I think it was the end of middle of May, the LGBT caucus and Tony Thurmond and who's his state superintendent, they introduced this bill to ban notification policies, to prevent a school from notifying parents if a kid is asked to change their name and pronoun, or the kid wants to keep secret sexual orientation, gender identity, those 2 things. But no one was going around asking teachers to tell parents that they think their kid was homosexual or gay. It was simply if a child is changing their name and their pronoun, and which is socially transitioning a kid. So it's a big deal. It has a big effect on the kid when the kid is confused about his gender, and then the school and the whole apparatus affirms his confusion.
Yeah.
And that leads to sterilization. Because right after you decide you're a different gender, the first thing you want is the drug, the puberty blockers, right? So why are we not including parents in this discussion? So that bill was introduced. We had a bunch of press conferences. You can go on our website, and we covered. We had great hearings.
Yeah.
But in the end, the governor signed it, like a week or so ago.
Oh my God!
And so immediately, the same attorneys who were representing Chino Valley have filed a lawsuit. So the lawsuit has been filed to prevent it from going into effect. It's supposed to go into effect January 1st. But this is a huge fight.
It is.
If they decide that parents can be kept in the dark about this, and why are they doing this? They're calling their bill the Safety Act. Now think about that. Who are they keeping kids safe from?
My gosh.
Parent.
Yeah.
And which kind of parent? The parent who believes that biology determines a child's gender. Any parent who would object to their kid thinking they're trapped in the wrong body. Those are dangerous parents that the school now feels obligated to protect their children from.
My gosh.
Folks,
wake up.
Wake up. Like
seriously.
Like you either pull your kid out of school because they are willing to feud your young kid, and then transition them without your consent or approval, right? And that makes the school itself potentially very dangerous to your young child. And they will not let you get involved unless your child, your 5-year-old, gives you permission. Your 6-year-old, 8-year-old decides, the parents should know. Talk about putting the government right in between the relationship between fathers and children, between mothers and children. They are going to decide whether you're a parent. And then you can only decide one thing. You can't have beliefs. This is really going after the Christian faith, Christian parent. It's like your beliefs are dangerous to your own children, right? It's going to the point where they're going to remove your children from your custody. We're already seeing that happen in the divorce proceeding. Men are losing custody of their children who want to be a different gender if they don't go along with the transitioning. They're losing custody, and that's where they want to go. They want to take away your children from you if you don't agree with the affirmation. Why? Because they think you are doing harm to them. You're going to make your kid kill themselves if you don't go along with their decision that they're a different gender. Now, that's a long explanation, but I feel like you needed the full
spectrum of it.
Understanding of what's happening. Anyway.
Man, Greg, it's definitely holds true to what Dr. Steve Farrar, he wrote a book called Point Man. And in that book, he said that there is a war on the family and the collateral is our children.
Absolutely.
If it isn't divorce that's wrecking the family, where you're divide and conquer, which is a military, it's happened in military, how to take over countries and stuff like that, divide and conquer. If it ain't happening there, they're alienating the children from their parents at schools. All that information that you just gave me right there and you just spoke on, Greg, just really got me to think, man. After all these different people that I've interviewed and talked to, from Jessica Tapia, who won her lawsuit over here at the Unified Public Schools, and also Richard Marks, who actually rescues kids, and all these different people that I've had on here that come on our podcast, right, like that. The main thing I'm seeing that the school has turned into is they are predators. They are grooming children. They are manipulating parents. That's exactly what a predator does.
Well,
it's insane.
And they think they're saving the children.
Yeah, and they gift wrap all this, and it's for the children's safety.
Right.
It's crazy, and that's why people need to wake up, because if it's happening here, it's going to come to your state. It's going to move across the nation, man. This is definitely a foothold a stronghold that's trying to take place, and we need to stop it. It takes more men being educated, because if you don't know what's going on, all the stuff that you said here, I guarantee a lot of men don't even know that's going on. Because why? They're tired, they're exhausted, they're trying to provide for their families. They just want to go to work, get it done. They're having to make ends meet, because these ridiculous laws these draconian laws that they're passing, right, are making it harder and harder for the American family to even survive.
No, I hear you. But you think, what your kids are the most important thing you have, your biggest responsibility, right?
Exactly.
And if it comes down to you can't do it, move.
Yeah.
Move to where you can. Your family is the most important thing. You're in charge. You're responsible. If you can't protect them, they got to go to public school, or their schools are bad, get them out, right?
Yeah.
Move to a different state. I mean, if I could not homeschool my own kids, if I thought that their own school was turning against me, right, I'd get out. I mean, there's nothing. I don't care where my career is. I don't care.
Yeah.
Your ultimate goal at the end of the day is protecting and providing for your own family. Protecting means you protect them from this, like people who would do them harm. These things are harmful to kids, right? You can't imagine a kid being able to push back on a lot of this stuff, especially when it's happening young. I mean, maybe if they're they're strong, but the kids who are most vulnerable are those who don't fit in.
Yes.
Right? Those who already feel awkward at school. Those who, don't fit into, they don't feel confident about themselves. Right? Those kids are vulnerable to being sucked in.
Do you feel that since these kids, right, these are the same kids that predators pick on. They don't pick on the strong ones.
Right.
Even when you look at, predators in the wild, right? They single out the ones that are separated, away from the pack, everything like that. I used to kill coyotes all the time, and that's exactly what they do. But that being said, do you think that because these kids are already socially awkward, they're the outcasts or whatever, right? Do you think that can change if parents recognize that and parents do the work personally to get out of that, get discipled, to be able to give that to help their children develop self-confidence and stuff like that? Do you think that would be able to change? Do you think it's too late?
Absolutely can change. Parents just have to recognize it, not just say, "Oh, he'll be fine."
Yeah.
School is hard for me. It's parents paying attention. Kids are looking for a group to belong to. Right? If they don't fit in, they're vulnerable to being taken in, because the LGBT groups, they start. Listen, they're starting clubs all over campuses, right? Here in Elk Grove, where I live, they're starting LGBT. They're called rainbow groups or UBU groups, clubs. They're starting them in elementary school. So, and like just recently, we had made national news because we had a third grade teacher decide he was going to start a UBU club, and so he went around. He started himself. He went around all the classrooms down to third grade with his rainbow flag and invited all the kids to come to be part of his new club. It was for boys who crush on boys and girls who crush on girls. But anybody could come, and we're going to get some really great games and have food, and everybody's welcome at lunchtime. But this was the only club that they weren't going to tell parents about. So it was a secret club. You didn't have to get parental permission. And parents, when they found out about it, they were really upset. I mean, this was like a country school, like in the eastern part of town. It was kind of small, and people actually moved out there just because the school was so, had a reputation for being good.
Yeah.
But when they started doing these secret clubs, and this is a district-wide effort. We found out that there are 5 other clubs in other elementary schools, and parents don't know about them. They don't have to get permission. But the school also had a gardening club, but you can only go if you got permission slips So why are they not getting permission slips for the UVU club? Right? And you're going to talk about what? You're going to talk about sexuality and sexual attraction in third grade? Like, is that not with one of the teachers? Or what's the curriculum going to be? What books are you going to read? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Right? This is grooming kids. This is starting very young to get into kids' minds that gender and sexuality are a free-for-all. There's no norms. You are whatever you look inside, and what are you feeling? Who are you attracted to? And every kid, in third grade, they all hang out with people of their own sex. They're not interested in girls. Well, I don't like girls. Well, all my friends are boys. I must be gay. Right? This is where we're, and they're doing it in the name of anti-bullying. Right? We don't want to bully kids who are different. Right? We don't want to bully kids who are different. So how do we prevent bullying? We promote homosexuality. We normalize all sexual orientation. That's the only way bullying is going to stop. Is we stop having beliefs about Christian beliefs about sex and gender have to be eliminated to eliminate bullying. That is their thinking. The whole society needs to be transformed to give up Christian moral values. And so what does the Christian kid do? Right? And if he speaks up, he's treated as though he's hateful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And churches aren't talking about this enough. And nobody's, sadly, not enough people are talking about this.
No.
And so people are just going to go with what the majority is saying. And kids need to be prepared. This is how Christianity in the U.S. is going to be attacked. You always wonder how persecution was going to come. What were they going to attack? Well, this is it. They will not. They love Christianity as long as it's talking about helping the poor and being nice to people. But you better not try and teach people about your views on gender and sexuality. That's hateful.
Yeah.
And you are a danger to society because of those beliefs.
I often wondered. There's a scripture that says the people of God, or the kingdom of heaven, suffers violence, and the violence take it by force. I'm starting to see now that because of our backseat approach as believers, just don't defend anybody and stuff like that. This is what's happening. This isn't violence like you're going to come out full on swinging or anything like that, but it's a very, very violent attack on our children. It's aggressive.
Right.
And this is exactly what's happening.
And it doesn't take that much to turn this stuff back.
No.
Right? Those parents in that particular school I told you about, the secret club, in the middle of the day, like 20 parents showed up for a meeting with the principal, filled her entire office. And this is in the middle of the day. People work.
Yeah.
But people took off work. Men and women piled into her office and confronted her about what they were doing. And then we organized people going down to the school board, right? And we had this one guy who was a local, he's a police officer. And I was really impressed that he got up there and spoke at the council meeting. Because, police officers, do I want to have my face out there? What's my boss going to say if I get involved in something political? He didn't care. He got up there and he said, you know what? Anytime an adult tells a child, don't tell your parent, we should be concerned. That's what predators do. I see it all the time. Right?
Yeah.
If you're going to groom a kid for sexual molestation, the first thing you got to do is make sure the parent don't know about it, and you got to convince the kid to keep a secret from the parent.
Yep.
Right? And now here we are training kids to keep secrets from their parents at a young age.
Absolutely.
And on the issues of sexuality. What do you you are making kids vulnerable to abuse.
Absolutely, 100%.
How do parents protect your kid if they're told not to tell mom and dad?
And it's crazy.
And so far in Elk Grove, they stopped the one club, but they're trying to decide whether the law requires them to require parental approval. And so, to think they could start secret clubs for elementary school kids to talk about same-sex attraction and gender identity, it's just no. That you should always be concerned when where your kids are going, what homes they're going to, right? You don't let your kid go to anybody's house if you don't know the parent, right?
Yeah.
Well, school's the same way.
Yeah, exactly.
If school becomes just as dangerous as where they do things in secret and don't tell your parent, then that school's not safe for your kid. Exactly. And if parents would resist and come out by the hundreds and the thousands, the schools would stop doing it. They would stop it immediately. They know that they would be bankrupted. If enough parents stood up and said, I'm pulling my kid, I don't care what it takes, I know I can't afford this, right? But I'm not my kid's not going to your school anymore. I will not do it. If enough parents and fathers especially, I deal with a lot of brave women. Sadly, not so many guys. Now, I know a lot of guys are working and stuff, and then somehow, going down to a school board meeting. I don't know what it is, but we need more guys to speak up and stand up.
You're absolutely right with as many women that are standing up. We're seeing more and more throughout the country, too. We have more women who are stepping into leadership positions as governors, as politicians, all these different things, right? Because men have stopped being leaders. I don't know if it's because we're sedated, we just don't care, whatever the case. But as men, we need to wake up.
That's right.
We need to. There's a great quote out there that says, evil prevails because good men do nothing.
Absolutely. I say it all the time. And I see that all the time. The reason California is such a mess is not because of the liberals. It's because of the silence of the good guys.
Yep. Absolutely.
We have tons of people who disagree with the government, but just don't want to deal with the headache of having to confront them.
Well, the reason why is because it hasn't affected their pocketbook yet.
Well, yeah, they're waiting for it to show up at their own house. And so that's our big difficulty. Like, what's been happening at the Capitol has been happening for a long time. It's been a slow progression, right? And so now it's finally getting down to your home, right? But we've been warning you forever. This all came from laws that were passed back in early 2000s, right? And then it's every year they do a little more. It's kind of like they send out a trial balloon. Like, let's introduce this. What kind of reaction do we get? Hey, people didn't really react. Let's do something more radical and crazy. And a lot of time, I remember when I first got this job in 2017, they introduced a bill to let people decide what gender they wanted to be on their licenses. Where you look at your license and it says X, it says M or F. Yeah. They were going to leave whether you put M or F up to the individual. And then you could also pick if you wanted to be non-binary, which was a U. So what does that mean? That means any guy could write on there that he's a female, which is a lie, but you can pick your sex. And so the Republicans, I was like one of the only people testifying against the bill.
Wow.
People thought, just let them have it. It's like, how is it going to affect you personally? I go, you are letting the government, you're letting people lie on government record. You don't think there's going to be repercussions from that?
And
now we got men taking over women's sports. We got men saying they're women and being housed with women in prison, raping them and handing out condoms to the women. What the heck is that for? Right? So it's been a slow progression, and nobody wanted to bother with it, And now I'm glad people are finally waking. I'm hoping people are waking up. I keep thinking, okay, this is the law that's going to make people freak out.
Yeah.
Right? And then they pass it, and then nothing happens.
Yeah.
Like, what are people waiting for? It's like You ever see the story of the illustration of a frog? You put him in a pot of warm water, and you put it on the stove, and the frog's fine, and you just kind of slowly turn up the heat. Yeah. And he doesn't jump out, but if you threw him in hot boiling water, he'd jump out immediately. Well, this is a slow progression, right? And they're not going to come out with and tell you what they're doing. They're going to say it's to protect your kids from bullying. It's going to save them from suicide, right? Mm-hmm. It's about being inclusive and loving, and and then you realize they're sterilizing your own kid. Mm-hmm. They somehow think, cutting off a young girl's breast is some kind of treatment for a mental health issue. It is nuts, folks. And at some point, I'm hoping it's soon, that it's not so hard to get people to come to the Capitol anymore. Yeah. It would not take much to stop this. And I'm not talking about any type of violence. I'm just talking about showing up.
Yeah, showing up.
A public meeting. Right? Yeah. And voting these fools out. If they keep doing this stuff, and they keep getting voted in because nobody's paying attention, nobody cares. Oh, my vote doesn't matter. Yeah, well, that's exactly what they want you to feel. Mm-hmm. If nobody gets voted out for passing this stuff, then they will not stop.
Exactly. Well said, Greg. Well, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing all this information, brother. I mean, I definitely know that this is going to open up the eyes to a lot of people. And like I said before, if this happens in California, it's going to happen in your state too. So
absolutely.
Wake up, gentlemen. There's a great quote I want to end with. They say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. We all started off thinking, oh, don't worry. How does it affect you? And just be inclusive and all this stuff. Well, at the end of the day, you're going to find yourself like that frog in that boiling water, and you're not even going to know the atmosphere has changed. So be influential. Be the father, be the leader that God's called you to be, and influence your own family, man, for good. Once again, this is David with the Show Up Dad with my special guest, Greg Burt. Greg, I want to give you the opportunity right now how people can get a hold of you and what you're doing, if you please can tell them.
Yeah, CaliforniaFamily.org. It's CaliforniaFamily.org. We are constantly writing about this stuff. I used to be a newspaper reporter, so just published 2 stories this last week, and we're giving people opportunity to call their legislators, teaching you what to do. We have all kinds of events we're constantly throwing. We have a big March for Life every year, so if you go to our CaliforniaFamily.org, you can see all that information, and you can sign up for our newsletter. It comes out every week, keeps you in touch with what's happening at the Capitol and what you can do to make a difference.
Right on. Well, once again, thank you, Greg. We appreciate all the hard work you're doing, brother.
Thanks for the opportunity.